Welcome to Module 8. This is going to be our second iteration of thinking about lean thinking. Lean thinking is one of those aspects of operations management that truly is applicable across industries. I know as we look at some aspects, it seems like it's maybe a little bit more aligned towards manufacturing or industries where you've got a lot of historical data and large volumes of either customers or parts or products. Lean thinking can be used everywhere. So, in every industry, from healthcare to education to government, New York State has a big lean initiative where they hire a number of people to work on all aspects of government initiatives using lean thinking. And of course, we see it in manufacturing still. So, this is something I really want you to dive into. And for me, when I try to work with different organizations, the key fundamental piece of this is really the scientific method. It is, instead of using assumptions, which is what we do all the time because we're so busy and we have hundreds of emails in our inbox and things that we have to do and we need to get back to people, thinking critically about evaluating our operations, understanding the current condition, and then having a hypothesis that if we make a specific change, that it's going to have some sort of outcome. If we run through that, if we incorporate the people who are doing the work in that process and have them have all of their ideas for improvement and being able to test those out as well. It seems so simple and it seems like common sense, but actually practicing it is really difficult. I like to think about it like exercising and eating healthy. We all know these things are good for us, but actually doing them and having the rigor and the discipline to do them really well is hard. And if you can do the same thing in an organization, if you can have the discipline to really engage all of your frontline staff and employees in thinking critically about operations on a regular basis and using the scientific method, using PDCA or PDSA cycles, which we're going to be talking about this week, and running little experiments and seeing what works and what doesn't, and then constantly improving. That's continuous improvement, and that is lean thinking. Again, it's common sense. It's really difficult in practice, but with support, and which is what I do for a lot of organizations, is I prefer to be called more of a coach than a consultant. In a lot of cases, consultants will come in and they will look at your operations and they'll tell you the best thing to do and how to reorganize your staff and how to modify your processes to enable continuous flow. Um, while I could do that, that's not going to benefit the organization, because as soon as I walk away, that organization, that process is going to go right back to the way it was. And the people who are doing the work don't have a voice. So from my standpoint, I like to call myself a coach, because I go in there and I work with teams and I help support them and listen to their ideas first instead of the things that maybe I think are a good idea. Um, Again, I have a background in this, but they do the work every single day, so they probably have a lot better, better ideas than I have. And it's just a matter of getting these teams together and running through these cycles. So this week we are going to be focusing on all things scientific method, right? Again, we learned it in grade school, but we want to apply that same rigorous thinking to our operations and to our processes. We're going to be talking about a little bit more about Edwards Deming and PDCA or PDSA cycles. So it was originally termed PDCA for Plan, Do, Check, Act. And it really, again, it follows the scientific method. The verbiage changed kind of later on as lean thinking started to gain steam in the 90s, because what Deming was seeing is that a lot of organizations were just running experience, then checking and saying, okay, yep, we did it, now what's next? And what's so critical is that study piece and really stopping after an experiment to say whether or not it worked. And if it didn't work, again, growth mindset, that's fine. We're going to learn something from it and we'll try something new. So we've kind of just modified the language a little bit, but I use both, and I'm perfectly comfortable with you using both as well. Another key piece we'll talk about this week is standardized work. So we hit on this a little bit when we were talking about new product development and production documentation. So standardized work is really the best known way of doing a process. And I like to think of it like a good recipe. So if you've got the world's best mac and cheese, you're going to have on a single page a picture of what this awesome mac and cheese looks like, the purpose, you want to make the best mac and cheese, and it's going to have all of the steps that you take, all of the materials you need, how long it's going to take, and then you'll have the desired final product. We should be using the same thinking in our operations. And sometimes when we talk about standard work, some of the kind of initial feedback can be, is, well, do you think we're dumb? Like, is this too basic? You're basically forcing us to all be robots. And it's actually very different than that. So what we want to do is we want to standardize those basic things that we do all the time, because we want to make sure everybody's kind of doing it consistently and doing it in the same way. That frees you up to use your creativity and your knowledge to do those higher order things like strategic thinking, like planning, like doing analysis, right? We want our workers to basically be doing the same things, not only because we want to free them up to be working on some bigger, more important problems, but it's also really important because when we think about process improvement, we need to make sure that there's a consistent baseline. If there's too much variability in our processes, so let's say making a chai latte at Starbucks, one person does it and it takes 3 minutes, another person does it in a minute and a half, right? That's a lot of variability when you've got a lot of people coming in the door. So, in order to make sure that we've got consistent flow and that we can utilize our people in the best way to provide the best products consistently, we want to make sure that we've got a steady baseline, that everybody's essentially using the same steps. It's going to help us understand our resource allocation better. And when we make improvements to the process, we want to know that they actually worked. And again, using the Starbucks example, if somebody's making a chai latte and it takes 3 minutes, another person takes a minute and a half, and we say, hey, we want to try this new steamer, it's supposed to be much quicker, we're going to have a really hard time understanding how it worked because we've got too much variability in the process, right? If everybody takes a different amount of time, then when we look at the data, it's not going to be as clear to us whether or not that new steamer, that new piece of equipment made a difference. So standardized work is key to creating a consistent baseline upon which we can improve. Last but not least, lean leadership is all the things that Deming has talked about, his 14 points, and many of you in exam number 1 referenced with respect to Deming and his support of the people, those 14 points. Lean leadership is very similar. It is just knowing, again, that you don't have all the right answers. Stop assuming that you have the right answers. Get out of the conference room, go to Gemba, watch the process, have beginner's eyes, and try to learn something new about the work that's being done and the people that work with and for you. It's humble leadership. We want to use appreciative inquiry principles to make sure that we're asking people genuinely, what the outcome should be, what ideas they have. And the more that we can do that and just be good to our people, the better outcomes we're going to have. We're going to improve the key areas of our business, which are safety, quality, delivery time, cost, and morale. And that is the goal for lean thinking. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.